Kicking it with Elma. Tune in, baby.
Can I kick it?
This is Elma. Kicking it with me today is Des Bishop. The TV series Joy in the Hood saw you living and hanging out in some of the roughest and toughest and most socially deprived areas in Ireland's major cities, where you mentored local people in stand-up comedy. It was excellent TV, and it's available on YouTube. It was very funny, it was moving, it was a big eye-opener. The idea, where did it come from?
It really stems out of the fact that, like, I got clean when I was 19, stopped using, stopped drinking, and I just got heavily involved in, like, with other addicts. Like, a lot of my closest friends were guys that came from very difficult childhoods and, like, you know, very intense heroin addiction and violence and, you know, things that I hadn't really been exposed to be honest, but they became my closest friends. And I realized that despite the differences in our backgrounds, we were not only the closest friends, but we had a lot in common. And, you know, that addiction was a large motivation for how they ended up the way that they were, right? So I also knew that a lot of them were really funny. Most of them, when they got clean, ended up being really successful guys. So I knew that the humor was definitely not being represented in stand-up comedy, like the humor from these areas, but also the fact that when given an opportunity, people from supposedly disadvantaged areas can do well. So I had been obsessed with that for quite a while. So when after I did my first TV show and I was looking to do something new, I had this idea that we could get stand-up comedians from places where we weren't really hearing a voice, you know? And anybody will know. I mean, I think you're working in Brixton. Like, anybody knows that there is a certain type of local humor, often kind of morbid, you know, that's not afraid to be funny about stuff that's not that funny, like death and crime and addiction. And I just wanted to hear the humorous side of that stuff. And the most important thing was that the audience was from the area as well. So it wasn't just about the people that ended up performing. It was also about the fact that people from the area were in the audience, and it was a very positive local experience where everybody was like, yeah, this is a good time. And yeah, we're making fun of the area, but we're making fun of it on our terms rather than, say, a bunch of Chelsea guys being like racist and everything about kids from Brixton. It's a totally different thing, you know what I mean? Yeah, but the other great thing about Joy in the Hood is, like, there's been some things like Jamie Oliver and stuff. Now, those shows are fine, but it's taking people out of difficult situations. They get into cooking and stuff, and they find it a positive experience where we weren't taking people out of the area. It was about the area. It was as much celebrating the good things about these areas as much as it was about celebrating the fact that these people are now getting an opportunity, you know. So it wasn't condescending in any way.
No, it was very touching because it was real.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a celebration of the culture of that life, which doesn't get celebrated enough, which I knew was, I mean, basically since I got clean, I've always lived in areas that everyone loves to, like, joke about in a bad way. I don't know why. I just feel more comfortable in those communities. So I just wanted to kind of celebrate the stuff that I love about those communities rather than just suggest that there's a life outside it, you know.
They're quite notorious areas. Did you ever feel out of your depth, or were you ever scared or anything? I mean, I saw the bit with the chainsaw.
Yeah, I was never really that scared. I mean, that was a real moment. Like, that wasn't organized, but I mean, I guess I wasn't scared. I knew they were just showing off, like, and what I like about that scene you're talking about, where we just go into this abandoned flat and these guys whip out this console or whatever, I liked the fact that it was showing people that there's just a different level of what's acceptable, or there's a chaos in these neighborhoods that people possibly don't understand. And I like the fact that, even though that was one clip we actually got a bit of stick for, saying we were showing the area in a negative light, but what I liked was anyone who wants to judge a kid from Ballymun realize that most kids get their kicks by mooning a bus. These kids get their kicks by sawing doors off of flats and throwing TVs over balconies. Like, that's normal behavior. So you take a kid that's doing that at 4 p.m. and tell him to sit down and do his homework at 6 and then judge him. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I just wanted to show people the reality of, like, how difficult it is to succeed for, you know, a kid that is able to access that much excitement. You know, that's intense, you know.
I found the people from Ballymun really funny. I mean, naturally their humour was just brilliant. There's a lot of untapped talent there.
Oh, there's definitely untapped talent, and people are very unreserved in those areas. You know, it's not middle class. Middle class people tend to be quite reserved. You know, they're really concerned about social norms, whereas people from there, they don't give a shit. And I mean, I'm not saying one culture is better than the other, but what I'm saying is there's definitely some very entertaining things to learn from people who don't give a shit, you know, that are very liberated in the stuff that they'll say. Maybe they're narrow-minded in other ways, maybe they're not educated, which is fine, you know, but like, if you leave that to the side, the wildness is entertaining, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and also because you went in there and did a show like that, it wasn't so much just looking in at them, it was walking in their shoes.
I mean, I lived in the area, but I live in an area like that anyway. And I do a lot of work in my own area in Dolphin's Barn, and I lived in Fatima Mansions, another traditionally bad place, and like I know it, I'm completely non-judgmental, you know, like, so there's like no culture is perfect. So I was really just a celebration about the good things, you know.
You did one with travelers, and I mean, I've lived there and I've hung out with travelers, and I've seen the kind of shit they get, treated badly, not allowed in pubs or not served in places, you know. Yeah. So when you were with them, did you see this on a daily basis, or from their point of view?
My mother brought me up like to have no hatred towards anybody. So when I came to Ireland, everyone hated travelers. I had an immediate sense of taking their side because I had no baggage with them, so I didn't even understand why people would hate travelers. They just like a different culture, you know. When I ended up doing the show, like living with them, again, I had no judgment. I mean, they live a pretty wild life, and you know, like there's definitely aspects of the culture I'm not crazy about. You know, they're pretty dirty, and they're definitely too fond of booze, and there's a lot of violence in their society. Wouldn't be too crazy about the way they treat women either. But again, like I said earlier, you know, I understand where some of these things are coming from. And their own sense of alienation obviously has a lot to do with that and motivates their behavior. And they live, you know, in an alternative world, so they don't feel as challenged to change some of the bits of behavior. Because we have evolved as human beings ourselves. We were all doing that not that long ago. So, I mean, it's really easy to judge them under that criteria, but really they're not that different to anybody else. I just enjoyed the time. There's a bit of a difference in the way that they live. But in the end, I had a very positive experience with them.
I'm kicking it with Elma. Tune in, baby.
Can I kick it? Can I kick it?